Most people flying to Iceland land here, Keflavík Airport. But what if I told you that there is another airport that could save you hours of travel time and completely change how you plan your trip? It is a smaller airport, not far from some of Iceland's most beautiful and underrated regions. And surprisingly, almost no one is talking about it, at least not yet. I recently flew in and out of this airport myself, and in this video I'll show you how it could be a smarter choice than Keflavik in certain situations. Especially if you are short on time, want to avoid backtracking, or simply want to explore the northern parts of Iceland. The airport is located right here in Akureyri, the second largest town in Iceland, often called the capital of the north. And its location opens up some clever ways to structure your trip, whether you are flying internationally or domestically. And so let me show you when and how to use this hidden travel hack, and why it might be one of the most underrated tools for planning an epic Iceland itinerary. The first example where flying into Akureyri works the best is basically for those of you who have already visited the south and now want to spend more time exploring the north instead. And flying directly to Akureyri instead of Keflavik will actually save you about 6 hours of driving. Akureyri itself is a great place to base yourself for a short trip, as it's perfectly located right in the middle of everything North Iceland has to offer. Most of it within 2 or 3 hour drive in any direction. Plus, the town itself has everything you need. Supermarkets, restaurants, whale-watching tours, and even a geothermal lagoon to soak in after a long day. The same applies for those of you who don't want to rent a car. There are bus tours operating from Akureyri that visit places like Mývatn area or Godafoss waterfall. But still, if you have a driver's license, then I definitely recommend renting a car, especially if you want to see as much as possible on your own. And speaking of seeing stuff, let me quickly mention why you should visit North Iceland in the first place. So first, if you have already been to south of Iceland, then you'll immediately notice the difference in the scenery. While the south has that dramatic look, black deserts, moss-covered mountains, and glaciers in the background, the north feels more like a peaceful countryside surrounded by mountains and fjords. That said, you'll still find some resemblance here, like black sand beaches, as well as volcanic deserts, just like in the south. There is also no shortage of waterfalls or geothermal areas, like Lake Mývatn with its bubbling mud pools at Akureyri, Viti Crater, or Mývatn Natural Baths, which is basically the northern version of the famous Blue Lagoon. As for activities, I think North Iceland is actually the best place in the country for whale watching, whether it's from the town of Húsavík, Akureyri, or other towns along the coast of Eyjafjörður, which is the longest fjord in North Iceland. And if you ski or snowboard, then this area is going to be a paradise for you. Akureyri has Iceland's second biggest ski resort, Hlíðarfjall, and the whole region is actually one of the snowiest in the country. And if you venture a little further north to the Troll Peninsula, you'll find beautiful fishing villages, museums, and stunning fjord views. And thanks to the mountainous terrain, the Troll Peninsula is also famous for ski touring and heli-skiing. And if you want to discover the best places that North Iceland has to offer, then I'll leave a link below to my travel map and planner. And you should definitely check it out if you don't want to miss any local gems and you want to save long hours researching what to actually visit. Now, the second scenario where using Akureyri Airport might actually make a lot of sense is if you don't have enough time for the whole ring road, but also don't want to backtrack along the south coast. To optimize your time, I would suggest flying into Keflavik, visiting south coast, then heading through the east fjords up to the north, and then flying back from Akureyri to Reykjavík, or even catching an international flight directly from Akureyri. Just check this out. If you drive from Keflavik to the town of Hop, and then turn back, you are looking at least 6 hours of driving on the same road, with not much new to see on the way back. But instead, if you keep going toward Akureyri, you'll actually cover a shorter distance, and get to see a lot more along the way. Then you can either catch an international flight from Akureyri, or simply fly back to Reykjavík in just 45 minutes. And from there it is like 45-minute transfer back to Keflavik International Airport. Sounds pretty good, right? So why isn't anyone talking about this? Well, the truth is that it isn't going to work for everyone, which brings me to my personal experience and the downsides of flying from Akureyri. So since I live here in North Iceland and my family is in Czech Republic, then I recently got to test this route myself. I flew from Akureyri to the UK and then caught a connecting flight from there. At the moment, EasyJet offers international flights to Akureyri from 2 UK airports, London Gatwick and Manchester. The biggest downside I found was the time between connecting flights, and you might even need to spend a night in the airport hotel depending on your connection. And so these specific international flights are probably best for people who already live near those airports in the UK. Now, another downside is that these EasyJet flights currently only operate from October to April. But honestly, my guess is that it won't take too long before we see international flights operating from Akureyri even during the summer. And if or when that changes, I'll make sure to post an update in the comments. But to continue the list of downsides you should be aware of, it is also worth mentioning that in the winter, snowstorms can generally cause more delays or cancellations in Akureyri than in Keflavik. Also, as of now, I believe that there are only 1 or 2 rental companies that currently allow you to pick up a car in Reykjavík and then return it in Akureyri, which, can be a little bit limiting if you are looking for the best deal. And as for my own customer experience flying with EasyJet, flying to Iceland was fine, but flying out, not so much. The flight was delayed, my seat was broken and dirty, there was a cable hanging from the ceiling, and most of the food options on the menu weren't even available, and those that weren't good at all. And I know this is a budget airline and I don't usually complain about these things, but honestly, what was that? Hopefully I just caught them on a bad day. But now back to the domestic flights. If you don't mind paying a bit more for convenience, then you can fly from Akureyri to Reykjavík with Icelander in about 45 minutes compared to 5 to 6 hour drive. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, from Reykjavík's domestic airport, it's only about 45-minute drive to Keflavik. Either with a flybus, taxi or a rental car that you can pick up at the Reykjavík and then return at Keflavik. Either way, whether you go for a domestic or an international flight, I really enjoy flying from Akureyri for next 2 reasons. So number 1 is that I hate big airports, and this one is size of a bus station, like seriously it is tiny. And reason number 2 is that if the weather is good and you fly during the day, then you'll get amazing scenic views because you basically fly over the entire interior of Iceland. If you have tried this route, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't, then I hope that this gives you something new to consider when planning your Iceland trip. And of course, don't forget to check out the guide below, and right here is another video that you should definitely watch before coming to Iceland, so I hope to see you there.